Welcome everyone to the first ever mid-year committees in action update inspired by our very own engagement committee. And the goal of today's call is to get all members updated on what the committees have been up to since the fall meeting and get ready for the upcoming fall meeting. A big focus of the engagement committee is to make our meetings more beneficial, covering all the right topics for members. So they've come up with some great ideas to get feedback from members, which you'll see in their presentation. Just to show you, this is the agenda. So I'm going to run you through the outline. I'm going to pass this back over to Kelly, who'll give you an engagement committee update. And we have a few slides to show you. Then the expertise committee will come in, and that's going to be an update from Jim Gibeon. Education committee will come back to me because Emily Wan, the chair right now, is on a plane. Engineering committee, you'll get an update on lead and cadmium, advocacy and education, the standards review subcommittee, the sustainability subcommittee, and it will come back to me for the PFAS advocacy and education update. That committee is in a bit of transition, which was just discussed this week, and I'll give you an update on where they are. And the end of the call, we will have an update from our very good friend and partner in Tom Lee from BCLP Law, who will be giving an update on our CBA legislation engagement agreement targeting Minnesota and California. We will then pause for any questions and wrap up and give you some reminders for the fall meeting. So with that said, I'm just going to check. And Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll mute my mic and I'll move the slides for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Fran. Thanks for the great introduction too. I feel like Fran's part of the engagement committee too. I mean, she's part of every committee, right? But we really appreciate connecting with her to bring to life exactly what she said. This meeting that we're all in today is part of what the engagement committee has heard. So we want to make sure that people are, plugging in and having a little FaceTime with each other a little more frequently, without having to put a whole other in-person meeting on the books. So I feel like this will keep us all better connected throughout the whole year. So we're really excited about instilling this moving forward. Do you want me to do introduction of who's on there, or just, you guys can see there. And Nancy, is Nancy on here? I didn't know if Nancy joined on, and I have my attendees minimized. Maybe not. But, yeah. All right. So the first slide here, we wanted to start off by kind of recapping, right? So from our spring committee, we had asked at the end of it for you guys to give some feedback on, what you liked, what we could improve upon, that kind of thing. We got some feedback here, and we just wanted to kind of give you guys visibility to what we heard so that we can all, be aware of what we're working toward and hopefully encourage more feedback in the future. I'll just highlight a few things here. I think generally in the liked column there on the left, kind of some key themes are, people really liked the networking opportunities, the really welcoming environment. I think we had a lot of great engagement among the group there in terms of, how we organize things. There was great speaker feedback as well. And so we want to make sure we kind of keep on doing these things that are working well. Also heard the location was great. So thank you for that. And then on the dislike side there, a lot of these things have to do with more kind of cost, logistics, that kind of thing. So, things like how we, price the tickets, and if we have virtual attendee tickets and that kind of thing, just making sure that we're really mindful of people's time in terms of how we schedule and how we arrange the activities. And then, I think just, making sure that we've got our virtual attendees having a good quality experience. Okay.
Those are just some pictures from the event.
Oh, there are. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And then, in summary here, what we kind of boiled it down to is that these are kind of some opportunities for improvement, or what you guys said are opportunities for improvement. And that, involves kind of some of the things I just said, really, and just sort of acting on those. So considering those discount hybrid tickets that could come with an in-person attendee ticket, which I know Fran's kind of looking at as well. And then, just ensuring that, we've got good virtual attendee attendance, and ticket prices were a big thing. So Okay, looking ahead to the fall meeting, I think the key takeaways for us are we're talking about how we can reduce the excessive free time and find specific activities to fill the gaps that we do have. And I think in a moment when you see the agenda, it feels like we've really kind of shored that up in a great way. So I think that it'll feel like a really good use of time for our next meeting. We are also looking at that possibility of a virtual ticket to accompany each in-person ticket. And then learning, what topics are really important to you guys. We want to make sure that the content really resonates. It's really what we all are going to benefit from. And, you've probably seen an email about the roundtable topics. That's a forum for us to just kind of hear from you guys in terms of what we could all talk about as a team or what we could hear from speakers. It kind of depends on what topics you guys come up with, but we want to make sure that, you are part of the conversation of what we are talking about at these meetings because they're your meetings as well. So how do we make sure that we're listening to everyone to cover the topics that matter to the majority of us? Keep addressing the topics that really resonated. Again, we had some great speakers last time, and I think I already hit on the agenda part. So keep giving us feedback. We could definitely have gotten a lot more feedback than we did on the survey. And so we would love to see just more engagement on that and making sure that we're taking your guys' feedback into account. And then Chicago. So for our fall meeting, registration will begin on July 29th. So Fran will get that registration link out at that time. In terms of speakers, we will, of course, have Tom Lee back. We are having some other conversations with a couple of other speakers right now that we're kind of waiting on feedback. Fran, I guess I'm good to mention the possibility of another color talk is kind of being looked at as well. Hopefully we can get Vanessa from PPG back to keep us aware of what trends are going on with color. And then the roundtable and presentation topics, we would love to hear back from you guys this month on that. So, there could be a topic outside of PFAS, believe it or not, that might be impacting the industry, or just something, that's, like the color trends, or it could be a packaging requirement, or it could be, some other legal thing. I mean, really the sky's the limit here. We want to hear what's really mattering to you guys. And this is kind of at a glance how the fall agenda is shaping up. Fran's done a great job of thinking this through. I won't go through that line by line, but we've got a few hours there in the middle for the committees in action. And then that kind of runs us into the cocktail hour and the dinner reception, again, without kind of giving too much free time, making sure that we're really making the most of that first day.
And just to call out for the committees in action, if you're coming to the fall meeting, if you're not on a committee, you're invited to still come to this 2 to 5 p.m. session and sit in on one or more committees that you might be interested in participating in. So still come early. and it could be a good way to see if you want to participate in a committee.
Yeah, for sure. And then on Thursday here again, kind of a really efficiently run day. We've arranged this in such a way that we made sure that the committee's updates are happening a little earlier. I know that's one thing that we want to make sure that the people that are part of those committees are still there in case someone has to peel off early. So reorganizing that to make sure everyone's present to be able to participate in the updates and share what they've been working on. And then, we've got a couple of speaker slots there. We know Tom Lee is a great way to end the day and something that everyone looks forward to. So is there anything else you want to add on that agenda flow, Fran?
I just want to mention Euromonitor did confirm literally 3 minutes before this webinar that they will do the 1:30 spot and come with a trends update. And so that was great. And we do have the offer from Vanessa too. This is an interesting tie-in to come back. Vanessa will be announcing the color of the year on September 25th. So we would be the first getting the real live preview launch of the color of the year to come at 11:30 that on the 26th. So that could be really cool. We're just waiting to hear if the time works for her.
That's really exciting. All right, and then I'm going to hit it home one more time. We want to hear from you guys. It's as simple as scanning this QR code or clicking the link in the email, but any topic you want, even if you're like, this may not interest a lot of people, it could be a like we called it roundtable initially because the thought was, hey, maybe there's just a handful of us that X topic really matters to, but those folks could huddle up. We could break out into some of those smaller sessions. And again, if it's like a bigger theme that we're seeing consistently, that really helps us to find the right speakers for future meetings.
You know, Kelly, that touches on a great topic. That's how all the subcommittees in the engineering committee have formed, right? Some topic has come up and then a group formed. So maybe it's
Yeah.
an HR issue, maybe it's something else, and it would become a subcommittee of the engagement committee or education or expertise. So
Yeah.
if you want, you can even scan this now and may not have a topic this moment, but as you hear from the other committees, an idea might pop up and then you can just fill it in while you're online. And we will bring this back up at the end when we open up to Q&A. So I'm just going to leave it on for a few more seconds.
Hey, Fran.
Yes.
Hey, you can hear us. Great. This is Jim and Kurt.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Sorry for the delay in connecting, but we were having problems with the link.
No problem. Glad you can make it in. And it's perfect timing because you're next.
Oh, okay. All right. Timing is everything in life, right?
Hold on one second. Kelly, did you have anything else before?
I don't have anything else right now. I think that's it for this time.
Okay, so then we're going to I'm going to stop sharing. And Jim, if you want to give the update on the expertise committee, that would be wonderful.
Sure, absolutely. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. The expertise committee has been working since the last meeting to try and come up with ways for us to bring data and statistics to the CBA. And our current work has been centered around working with third parties, people like Euromonitor and others, to find market information, industry information that would be relevant to everybody. And obviously as some of you already know, these reports can be as broad or specific as you like. And so what we're doing is we're engaging all of them right now to determine cost and information that they can provide for that cost. So some of you may already know these organizations and have used their reports, but we're trying to find, an organization that will work with us as an association, because in some cases, such as an NPD Circana, they don't really have an association price and offer, but certainly the other organizations do. Now, mind you, Circana NPD is point of sale, POS data that they get. These other ones are driven by market data, interviews that they've held with some of their customers, information they can find on the internet, and kind of surveys and interviews they've done specifically with companies in an industry. So they're very thorough. They they give you brand information, they give you SKU information, they give you some trend and data analysis that way. So we're pulling these all together so that we can come up with essentially an estimate on what it will cost, and then bring that to the board and figure out whether or not that's something that the CBA wants to use. But we did not get any really good feedback from the membership on what they wanted out of a statistics report, quote unquote. And so we decided we needed to really look outside of the organization to try and find relevant information that we hope is meaningful to all of you. So that's where we are. We're collecting those estimates, those quotes right now, and talking to the different organizations, and then we'll come back to everybody with where we stand.
And Jim, just so you know, in your inbox will be the second company. We finally got dates from them for a call.
Good.
So
right, great. Yeah, I think there's 3 organizations we're engaging with, and they're some of the biggest and most well known in this space, and hopefully there's something there that we can work with.
Excellent.
If anybody does have any other organizations that they've worked with, like a Euromonitor, et cetera, please feel free to offer up those names and options, and we'll reach out to them.
Excellent. And I just also want to mention that if at the end of this call, anyone has interest in participating in any one of these committees, please contact myself or Lakeland, or if Galen or Lakeland know the link, we could drop in chat for people to sign up. That would be great. I know with Growth Zone, we have new things, new links for these different options. I am here in place of Emily Wan to update on the Education Committee. So the Education Committee's chart of work for 2024 was to begin to explore and build the outline for an online training program. It was one of the ideas in the strategic development plan, and it was the top idea embraced by the retailers we spoke to in the strategic development plan. So there's two things underway. Lakeland, and for those of you who know what the Guide to Cookware and Bakeware looked like, Lakeland turned it into a Word document and is working with the committee to go section by section to review and have comments made, what needs to be updated, what needs to change. So that's one chapter a week or every other week going on right now, one section at a time. We've also reached out to the HTI Buying Group, Gourmet Catalog, and IHA for their retailer forum. And a one-page retailer invitation is just been created. It's under review with the Education Committee to send to these groups. All groups are on board. All groups have retailers interested in participating in a roundtable to tell us what they would want to see on an industry-based training program. So they are going to provide input, and we would do a roundtable with each group. I do understand that with HCI and Gourmet Catalog, it could be overlaps. We're going to try to get 2 different groups from those 2 groups. But to have retailer engagement and feedback will be really important for that project. If anyone has, so I highly big plea for, if anyone has general information that they share, product knowledge that you can share with us that would be allowed to be used in the online training portal, please send it through. We're beginning a catalog of information. We have resources that date way back, but we're trying to collect as many as we can on important content. And as the outline gets built, we will reach out to members to see how it would work with contributions from members on missing sections. So that education is still in early stages, but because it's a lot of data and a lot of information to collect, but we have some great support people now through the retail community to identify this, and it will be brought, what we identify will then be brought to members to comment on what else they want to see. So this is all just the foundation to then come to members with the program. That is it from the Education Committee. And I'm going to ask John Crawford, newly assigned chair for Lead and Cadmium Subcommittee, to give an update on our newest engineering subcommittee.
By newly assigned, you mean yesterday?
Newly assigned yesterday.
Okay, good. Perfect. Yes. Good. Working with the subcommittee for lead and cadmium, we had our first meeting about a month or so ago. Still very much in its infancy. So on that call, we discussed just the presence of lead and cadmium in both bakeware and cookware with the members that were involved. Came up with 3 different categories that we would like to focus on: regulatory concerns, education materials, and then also product testing and compliance. So we have a few action steps from each one of those groups. As far as regulatory concerns, looking for clarification of exemptions, compliance within FDA regulations, the enforcement timeliness of that, and then also looking outside of just the state of Minnesota. Obviously, the state of Minnesota right now is leading the charge a little bit, so looking to see how it's going to impact other states. As far as education materials, similar to what we're doing with PFAS, looking to create sort of a guide of some sort for us to be able to educate our retailers. So we're reaching out to some industry and trade associations to see what's available. Also figuring out our stance for product documentation and testing. But then a little more within product testing and compliance, understanding how food contact fits within lead and cadmium, and just making sure we're addressing all of those concerns. So our next action steps that we're working on over the next couple months, we'll just be getting some guidance from a few industry contacts, working with some mills and some smelters to just get their perspectives, also some metal experts as well to see their views and thoughts of that to be able to help form those educational materials. And then also just gathering questions for Tom to be able to discuss with legislation and just get an understanding of our concerns as an industry between both lead and cadmium. That's a very brief update. We're still very much in our infancy and just kind of figuring out how we're going to fit in to be able to support the CBA.
Thank you, John. And touching on what you mentioned with Tom Lee, and Tom is here to give us an update on the legislation engagement agreement that we're working on. As you said, John, Minnesota is the top priority. It's enacted, and that legislation covers both PFAS and lead and cadmium. And the questions that we'll be asking of the MPCA addresses both parts of the legislation. And the hope is that what we learn from our engagement with Minnesota on the lead and cadmium side, as well as the PFAS side, but since right now lead and cadmium is still Washington's the only other one right now, it'll give us a platform and a template to go and address the other state. So that's one of the hopes with the engagement that Tom will be talking about later that does impact the lead and cadmium subcommittee. Okay, thank you, John, very much. And the next one, and I'm glad we actually are a little ahead because she might need a little more time because she handles one of the bigger subcommittees, which is Rafaela Romano for Neue Technica, who handles the Standards Review Subcommittee. The Standards Review Subcommittee is not only working on the finalization of the update on the nonstick chapters, a new chapter for porcelain or ceramic bakeware that's not ceramic coated bakeware, that's ceramic bakeware. They're also working on an update to the full standards on language, format, and identifying what might be missing. So I give it over to Rafaela, and I think I muted you, so there you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Fran. Okay, so as Fran mentioned, so the task for our subcommittee for the engineering standards had three main objectives for this year. The first one was standardizing the format, and there were two critical components to this, ensuring that each section had an introduction in scope. It was fairly inconsistent throughout the engineering standards. So that is one goal under standardizing the format. And the second one is updating the use of shall versus must. That is frequently used throughout the standards. I am actually happy to report that has been concluded last week. So that was one very large undertaking. So a huge thanks to the subcommittee for really going through that. The second objective that we had is developing and adding a ceramic bakeware chapter. A subcommittee was formed for that. We have an incredible volunteers, and it consists of Ian from Target, David from Corel, Andy from Newell, and of course Kurt, because he's practically involved in everything. So, and we have actually made some great progress with that chapter. I am being very optimistic, and we are likely to have something put together for a review, probably within the next few months. I'm optimistic. The chapter template has been created, and we're working on establishing useful definitions, aligning on capacity guidelines that are also referenced within the standards. These affect sections 1, 2.3 through 2.5, which includes the drying versus liquid and how to take those measurements. We're reviewing manufacturing processes, and we're reviewing various industry test standards, including the thermal shock testing that is referenced and applicable currently under, I believe, the glass bakeware. Now for the third objective is the finalization of a nonstick chapter. Currently, the engineering standards has 2 chapters specifically for nonstick chapter. I am in the process of pulling that all together. There have been, I'm going to probably say, a couple of years worth of notes and resolutions with that. Soon as that is put together, there'll be a review, and I'm also optimistic that will officially be a part of the goal of issuing another version come October of this year. So and that's pretty much the recap of what we've been working on for the subcommittee for the engineering standards.
Thank you, Rafaela. And next is sustainability with Brandy Beverage. I see.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let me share my screen real quick. Hopefully that works.
Yes.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So hello everyone, I'm Brandy Beverage from PPG. I'm going to give a quick update on behalf of the Sustainability Subcommittee and activities so far this year. So for 2024, our top objective has been to initiate a pilot program for take back and recycling of cookware and bakeware with Close the Loop or another similar company. And a big thanks to all the members and all of their contributions so far in getting this program started. Next slide. So for those who are not at the last spring meeting, I did want to give a quick introduction about Close the Loop. So Close the Loop acts as a partner to take back retired articles like cookware and bakeware at their end of life and have great connections with foundries for recycling those metals and materials. So with that, we have a pretty complex kind of flow chart of how it could work. So Closed Loop does have ability to set up collection schemes like a mail-in option or large Gaylord collection boxes at retail stores, sort those returned articles once they are shipped to their facility, and then disassemble any of the items with handles. They can also handle glass lids and things to get the best recovery out of each product and each of those materials within the product. So they can handle all types of metal cookware, including those that are coated with PTFE or Sol-Gel coatings and any things that come along with those. So we did set up a trial program with CBA member donated cookware articles of all different types and kinds of metals to see how Closed Loop can handle this and get some indicative pricing of what an actual program would look like. So I do think this small trial was a success. And we think the program, something like this, could have a really great story and positive impact for the cookware and bakeware industry. We're still currently ironing out all of the details and costs and how we can best set up a program like this to benefit all of the CBA members. And in addition, we have started to look at other options besides Close the Loop to see if we can identify competitors and obtain some quotes for comparisons. Or maybe even a different structure that could fit our needs better, that might be more cost effective. So with every conversation we have with Close the Loop, we learn more about current recycling processes, how are they handling emissions, how are their foundries handling things, so we can most effectively manage a sustainability program such as this. And as always, our top goal is to ensure we are working towards a solution that handles everything that's returned responsibly and has the most positive impact for the environment. So right now, our next steps are to continue evaluating other partnership options and then eventually work towards an actual pilot program with target, hopefully, to accept consumer returned bakeware articles, cookware and bakeware articles, to see how this could scale into a larger program and have a more realistic impact. So as far as that, I just want to open it up real quick in case any of the other sustainability members have something to add to, what we've done with Close the Loop so far, or any additional comments. And then I'll touch on a couple other initiatives we've thought of. Okay. So as far as other initiatives, I don't have another slide, but we have thought of, this is a really big initiative and it's going to take a lot to set up this sort of take back program for cookware and bakeware. In addition to that, we've thought of other things that we'd like to extend for, I guess, opinions to other CBA members, something like a plastic reduction goal for all CBA members. Any sort of packaging reductions in general, can we initiate that? Maybe set up some sort of logo that we can use if you're meeting certain sustainability goals, or helping suppliers helping those brands achieve sustainability goals. And what's a realistic goal that can make a difference? Is there any best practices that we can share between members and continue to develop past just a take back program? How can we initiate sustainability initiatives throughout the the life cycle of creating cookware. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Brandy. Actually, what Brandy ended with is a great list of topics and ideas of how you could even comment when we bring the QR code back up. If you liked anything that you've heard, it doesn't have to be a brand new idea, but you might want to vote for something someone's touched on and say, yeah, let's explore that more. Please feel free to use that form for the roundtable topics to express that interest so we know we're focusing in the right areas. Oh, next is PFAS. That's back to me because we've had an evolution of the PFAS subcommittee. Now with our work with Tom Lee and his help to engage California and Minnesota, and we're starting with Minnesota, but that activity to be a part of the solution and engage the states where there's enacted laws. Our PFAS subcommittee calls have evolved a bit, and we discussed this the other day, and what we agreed was it would be a two-way call where I bring updates from Tom Lee and the work that Rafaela does at Neue Technica for either industry updates, the PFAS tracker, or any other details. Tom Lee and BCLP, if you haven't seen this already, are giving us a monthly update on US legislation. It's a great one-pager that is going out in our e-news, so watch for that. So we can share those things on the PFAS call, and then the PFAS subcommittee will come with links or emails to states where we should be submitting our education documents or asking us questions about things that they have questions on regarding legislation. So with that said, while the PFAS subcommittee will also work on documents, and there is a discussion of a document number 4 that's trying to be figured out right now. If you want to be part of that committee, because of that two-way communication opening up, please feel free to join. We've made it a standard second Wednesday of every month for the PFAS advocacy and subcommittee call. Watch for that link and update in the future newsletters. And the other thing I want to mention before we turn this over to Tom Lee for his update, the third Wednesday of every month is an engineering call update. And Gayla, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that link lives on the member portal.
Yes, under the engineering committees page in the engagement, but yes, it's in the portal.
Wonderful. And I believe it's also in every CIA news. That's the Committees in Action news, which is the third Monday of every month. So for those who are either on the engineering committee, or that call is where on the engineering committee call on the third Wednesday of each month, I believe it's at 11 or 11:30 a.m. Eastern, we give an update on all these engineering subcommittees. So I invite you to join. We've had growing attendance. We even started to record them. We put the recordings on the member portal. So, you know, the engineering committee is at the heart of what the CBA is about, why we've been here for 102 years, which is about, you know, setting the standards that set the minimum requirement to create safe products. So watch for those invitations, check out the videos. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Lee. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Tom, as always.
Thanks, Fran. Nice to see everybody. Well, I have a few updates for you all. Let me see if I can share my slides here. Hopefully you can see those. So I guess to begin with, it's been an eventful year from the legislative perspective. So we've seen both Maine and Colorado significantly amend their consumer product laws, and both have added new restrictions on the use of intentionally added PFAS in cookware. We've also seen new laws in Connecticut, Vermont, Rhode Island, and there are a few others that are pending. So it's been a busy year. Certainly suggests that this is still a topic of a lot of attention for legislators across the country. And as Fran mentioned, we are, in acknowledgement of those emerging legislative developments, we're providing you guys with monthly updates that try to highlight and boil down, pull out some of the key provisions in those new laws as they come out. We'll also mix in some best practices, some other things, more practical solutions throughout the course of the year as legislation hopefully dies down a little bit. But I wanted to pull out a few from the last summary that we just circulated. So interesting provisions from Connecticut, Vermont, and Rhode Island that are a little bit different from what we've seen in some of the other state laws. So first, in Connecticut, there is a two-phase compliance process. First, in July of 2026, you're allowed to continue selling products in Connecticut that contain intentionally added PFAS, provided that you provide written notification to the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and they include a label on the product, which reads made with PFAS chemicals. And then in January 2028, the general prohibition goes into effect. So it is a little bit different than what we've seen in the other labeling states, like California and Colorado, both in terms of deadlines and content. And there is also an agency disclosure component to it. So something to think about as we get closer to that date, assuming, of course, this continues to exist in its current form. So then Vermont has a prohibition that's a little more familiar. It's beginning in July 2026. It's prohibition on regulated PFAS. So not just intentionally added. It prohibits intentionally added, but it also prohibits more than 100 parts per million of total organic fluorine. Now, I know a lot of you have heard me go on and on about total organic fluorine in the past. I won't do that again here, but if people are interested, I'm happy to have that conversation anytime. The point here is it's not just intentionally added, it also requires an understanding of the baseline concentration of organic fluorine in your product. So it's a little more than just looking at what's in your supply chain and having your supplier say, we're not intentionally adding it. And then the third important point is coming out of Rhode Island. And this is consistent with definitions Rhode Island has used in other laws related to PFAS, particularly in food packaging. So their definition of intentionally added goes upstream in the manufacturing process. It's not just what you intentionally add to the end product. It is the use of PFAS during the manufacturing process, including as a processing aid as well. So a lot of relevance for plastic molding, plastic extrusion, resin mixing, and some other manufacturing processes that have a relationship with PFAS chemistry. So as Fran mentioned, we're going to continue to work to keep you all updated and pull out these types of highlights from the new laws. But I thought these three would be an interesting set to just give you a flavor of what we're starting to see from the states. So then turning to the federal level and taking a look at the TSCA PFAS reporting rule, which I know a lot of you are working your way through, there's been this question about whether or not there's a potential for a reporting exemption for the any PFAS that is added on the cookware surface. So it's a food contact surface exemption. And the theory is under TSCA, the definition of a chemical substance does not include any food, food additive, drug, cosmetic, or device, which is regulated by the federal FDCA. Food contact surfaces are considered food additives under the FDCA. So the fact that PTFE, FEP, and PFA are listed as food contact substances that are approved for use by FDA as of now, would suggest that they should be exempt from reporting. Now, we have been trying to work with EPA to get a definitive statement confirming that. And I know that a few members have tried that as well. We've talked to other third-party groups who have done the same. We have gotten sort of partial answers that I think at this point give us enough of a response from EPA for us to take those answers back and start to put together an analysis. We likely will not get a definitive statement from EPA saying, yes, in all cases, there is an exemption that applies. But, I think we have enough pieces of the puzzle to put together an analysis that would justify some application of an exemption. So we're working on that right now. I do want to temper everyone's enthusiasm here. It's a limited exemption. So it is limited to those PFAS compounds that are approved for use as food additives. It's limited to the food contact surfaces of the product, not the entire product. But I think in many cases that may account for the bulk of the PFAS you might be required to report under the TSCA reporting rule. So limited and targeted exemption, but I think it will have a pretty broad set of implications for the industry. So more on that in the weeks to come. Our other big effort that has been alluded to a few times is outreach to Minnesota. So we now have a direct relationship with a gentleman named Kirk Kudelka, who is the assistant commissioner at the MPCA, who has been tasked with managing the implementation and interpretation of their PFAS law. I've had a few conversations with him, and he and his group are very, very focused on getting stakeholder input. They've already put in place some working groups that are advising them on certain issues, but he said that they are really looking for exactly this kind of industry-wide questions and input regarding specific provisions of the law. So we are in the process of compiling questions that all the wonderful members have submitted. I do want to say, if you still have questions that you have not submitted, please try to get them in by the end of this week, by July 19th, because we do want to get things in front of Minnesota as quickly as we can. So if you can get them in to Fran, you can send them to me, and we can then compile everything, get that organized, and then I'll be sending them to Kirk and working with him and his team to get them answered.
And just on that point, I just dropped a link in the chat, which is the form to submit them. It would be great if you could use that form or send them to us, because we've already sent Tom, I think, a 5 or 6 page list of questions, and we can merge it in there for him, so it's easier for him to sort through. But the link is in chat.
Thanks, Fran. I knew you'd be organized about this. And just in case people are interested, there are some upcoming webinars that MPCA is hosting. The links are here, and I'll send these slides to Fran in case you'd like to distribute them later. But I plan to attend, and I think you will see some learnings from these featured in perhaps next month's update from us. But they're going to be a very important way to get some insights into what MPCA is thinking about, what specific provisions they're interested in perhaps interpreting. So a good resource for those who are interested. So that's it for me from a very high level. I think there's been a lot of activity in the space. We've made some good progress, both at the EPA level and in setting things up with Minnesota. So we'll keep pushing forward and hope to get you some actionable updates sometime soon.
Fantastic. And I dropped another link in chat for the July 18th Minnesota webinar that Tom just had on the screen. So if you want to sign up for that, it did go out to the engineering committee earlier this week, the full big engineering committee and PFAS subcommittee, but everyone who's on this call, if you'd like to join that one, which is tomorrow, the link is in chat as well.
And I can add the link for the one on the 25th.
Thank you. Good team. Okay, so thank you again, Tom. And so just to run through on this last part, the most important action items are if you want to submit questions for Minnesota and you haven't done so already, or you have and you have a new question, please use the form or email Lakeland and I, and we'll merge them for Tom. The 2 webinars are in the chat if you want to join them that apply to Minnesota. And California will happen after we work through Minnesota. This is where the bigger questions happen for us. Before we open it up for questions, I would just like to share my screen one last time and take this opportunity to remind people about the member portal. So if you go to cookeryandbakeware.org, in the upper corner, there'll be a member login as well as a member login link right on the front page. And based on the 4 pillars and the 4 main committees you just heard from, the member portal is arranged the same way. There's engineering, engagement, education, and expertise. There's also important downloads if you want to see the strategic plan, read the bylaws, see the membership agreement, or for your accounts payable people, there's things, the engineering standards we talked about for anyone, especially for new members. If you want to download copies of the engineering standards, this is where you'll find it. And everyone with an email address is allowed. And this is where you can also see the different standards in progress and other great information. So I will not take too much time walking through the member portal. I will stop share there, but I just wanted to remind everybody that, and knowing keeping up with what's going on with each committee is also in the member portal. There's actually a whole committee section, and you can go and see the latest recaps and results of each meeting and how they're progressing along. So with that, we have a nice few minutes left to open up to questions. Please feel free to open your mic, or thank you to Jim and Kurt. I see that you guys have to go. Thank you so much for coming. But anybody else who would like to open up their mic or drop a question in chat. And while we wait for questions, if Gayla or Lakeland have anything, please feel free. Or Kelly. Kelly's still here, right? So, oh, you know what I have to put back up on the screen? The QR code. So if you if people are still thinking of questions or otherwise, this is a great time. If you were inspired by any of the speakers today or topics that the committees are covering, it's a great time to submit any ideas for these roundtable topics. Again, they don't have to be what you heard here today. They could be something completely different. It could be an HR issue. It could be a packaging. It could be anything. We just want to hear what is top of mind of members. Well, I will also say, just a reminder, July 29th, registration will open for the fall meeting. Watch for more from us and the engagement committee on that. And we look forward to seeing everybody there.